Does money actually buy happiness? It's kind of the ultimate provocative question, isn't it? If you ask around, society puts a ton of pressure on us to give this guilt-ridden automatic no. We're constantly told that focusing on money is shallow, right? That we should be looking for fulfillment in other things, and that true happiness only comes from within. And hey, there's absolutely truth to finding joy beyond material things. But what if we've been, slightly misdirected about how useful money actually is in our daily lives?
Actually, if you ask veteran wealth creators, the view's pretty unambiguous. They'll tell you that money actually solves about 90% of your problems. Just think about that for a second. 90%. All those everyday stressors, the panic about unexpected emergencies, the strict limits on your time, an overwhelming majority of that friction literally just vanishes when you have the financial resources to handle it. All right, let's jump straight into today's explainer. We're unpacking the Wealth Creators Playbook, 7 Habits to Rewire Your Money Mindset. This is all based on financial journalist Sonia Chenoy's 17 years of interviewing top leaders, and we're going to take you through a real evolution here. We'll hit 3 distinct phases: unlearning society's rules, rewiring your internal metrics, and executing on new habits. So let's get into it. Part 1, the truth about money. Okay, so we've got to start with our first phase, which is unlearning. And the very first thing we have to unlearn is our innate guilt around money. We really need to embrace an unapologetic hunger to earn. Veteran investor Sunil Singhania, who has been managing public money for over 30 years, hits the nail on the head here. Money isn't about just hoarding cash to swim in it like Scrooge McDuck. It's simply a means to an end. It buys you the ultimate luxury, which is freedom. The freedom to make fundamental life choices, the freedom to invest in a business you're passionate about, or to choose a life partner without financial stress breathing down your neck. Or, and this is probably the most crucial one, the freedom to just walk away from a toxic job or a bad situation. Singhania warns that obsessing over money brings sorrow, sure, but unapologetically earning it to buy your freedom, that is exactly the goal. Moving on to part 2, embracing failure and detachment. So this second step means confronting something most of us have had drilled into us since childhood, the absolute fear of failure. It's crazy how big the divide is between how the majority of people operate and how wealth creators operate. Look at society's view. From the moment we step into a classroom, we are taught that we must succeed at everything we touch. And what does that do? It breeds this paralyzing fear of judgment. We become so terrified of looking foolish that we'd actually rather do nothing at all than make a mistake. But the wealthy view? Completely different. They allow failure. They practically expect it because they know for sure that without risking failure, you can never unlock those massive, life-changing opportunities. Wealth creators don't see failure as a roadblock. They see it as the necessary friction to achieve escape velocity. To really drive this point home, there's this fantastic anecdote from the highly successful investor Ramesh Damani. Really early on in his life, his father gave him some money to trade in the stock market and told him this: start trading, and even if you lose all the money, it's fine. I mean, can you imagine the absolute liberation in hearing those words? His dad completely removed the fear of consequences. When you stop agonizing over other people judging your failures, your perspective just shifts entirely. You open yourself up to the kind of magic that lets you take that new job, start that wild business idea, or move across the country. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Vikas Kamani from Carnelian Capital applies this exact same logic, but he draws heavily from the teachings of the Gita. He says if you focus solely on the output, constantly daydreaming about the financial reward, chasing the promotions, stressing over the final outcome, you ironically end up sabotaging your own success. The real secret habit here is detachment. By fiercely detaching yourself from the outcome and focusing 100% on the quality of your input, the grind, the learning, the day-to-day process, the quality of your work naturally skyrockets. And the rewards? They just end up following you as a happy byproduct. Part 3, the inner scorecard. This brings us perfectly into the rewiring phase of our journey. We've unlearned the guilt and the fear. Now we have to completely shift our fundamental metrics of success away from what society thinks. To do this, we use this amazing concept introduced by Warren Buffett and spoken about a lot by investor Monish Pebre. It's called the inner scorecard. Look, society is incredibly loud. It measures success in really visible, flashy ways. Who has the nicest car, who lives in the biggest house, who's wearing desire labels. But an inner scorecard forces you to tune all of that out. It asks, how do you measure your own success? When you rely on internal criteria, you stop running on that treadmill of trying to keep up with the Joneses. Because ultimately, no one gets to define your happiness or success but you.
So, what does this internal rewiring actually look like in your bank account? Well, if you aren't trying to buy the massive house or the flashy car just to impress people you don't even like, you naturally spend less. And as Warren Buffett guarantees right here, if you just spend less than you earn, avoid borrowing money to show off, and invest consistently, you will absolutely become wealthy in your lifetime. That whole wealth creation journey, it starts entirely with shifting to an inner scorecard.
Part 4. Audacious and Fundamental Thinking. We are officially in the final phase now, execution. How do we take this newly rewired, totally fearless brain and apply it to the real world? Well, have you ever noticed how wealthy people always seem to punch way above their weight class? Veteran value investor Metasoodan Keela explains why. They look for asymmetric risk. Just think about the massive disparity in those numbers. When they evaluate an opportunity, whether it's a stock or a brand new business venture, they know the downside is generally capped. Maybe the stock drops 30%, or maybe the venture totally fails. But what if it works? What if it shoots up 300%? By thinking audaciously and overestimating that potential upside while accepting the binary downside, you give yourself the permission to chase massive, life-altering growth instead of just playing it safe for incremental gains.
But to actually find those crazy 300% upsides, you can't just think like everyone else. You need a specific tool. And tech leader Nandan Nilekani highly recommends this one, first principles thinking. This basically means you completely dismantle traditional assumptions. Step 1, question literally everything from the ground up. Step 2, refuse to rely on existing analogies or that old excuse of, well, this is how things have always been done. And step 3, break the problem down into its absolute most basic, undeniable, fundamental components. Let's look at the ultimate anchor for this concept in the real world, Elon Musk. When Musk decided he wanted to go to Mars, the industry told him rockets were just too expensive. But he didn't accept that established cost as a universal truth. Using first principles, he broke a rocket down to its raw materials, aerospace-grade aluminum, titanium, carbon fiber. And he realized that the cost of those raw materials was only a tiny, tiny fraction of the final price of a finished rocket. By rethinking the entire manufacturing process from those core components, rather than just doing what the rest of the industry was doing, he dramatically lowered production costs and literally launched a new era of space travel. That is the sheer power of execution through first principles.
And finally, part 5. Create more, consume less.
For our final habit, we're looking at that daily battle we all face, the friction between what you make and what you take. Honestly, this is the most practical habit you can start applying today. The wealthiest, most successful people out there spend incredibly little time consuming content and a massive amount of time creating it. Contrast the passive consumer with the active creator. And keep in mind, creating doesn't just mean filming YouTube videos or writing the next great novel. It means actively engaging your brain. It means reading deeply, compiling your own research, and intentionally learning a brand new skill. And the data completely backs this up. Studies consistently show that around 70% of wealthy individuals watch less than 1 hour of television a day. Now compare that to how much time the average person spends binging the latest true crime doc or aimlessly doom scrolling through timelines. People who build real wealth guard their time so aggressively. They understand that every single hour spent passively consuming is an hour they could have spent creating, learning, and compounding their value in the real world. And well, that wraps up our explainer for today. We've unlearned the guilt and the fear. We've rewired our scorecard to focus on our own internal metrics. And we've armed ourselves with audacious first principles execution. The habits are laid out right in front of you. The only thing left to do is to turn off the passive consumption, step into the arena, and actually put this new money mindset to work. So I'll leave you with this one final question. What will you create today?